Hi there and welcome to another interview. Today I've got the fabulous Lee with me, and Lee is also known as the Kent Carnivore. And I am going to ask Lee the same question I ask absolutely every single guest, and that is, hey Lee, why did you become carnivore?
Hey, so my story really starts back in 2012, where I was diagnosed with my first ailment. It was quite mild actually to begin with, but it was ulcerative colitis. So an inflammatory bowel disease exclusively affects the colon. It was classed as mild proctitis at first, and after a couple of years, things got a little bit worse, went back, and now I've officially got ulcerative colitis. So this is obviously an autoimmune disease. It caused symptoms like a lot like diarrhea, but it came with blood and mucus and pus and things. So obviously that was the first thing I noticed before I went down to the doctors. Concerned me a little bit. There was all these adverts about bowel cancer at the time on the TV, and actually one of the first things that the doctor said, the GP I saw, he said, if you think it's bowel cancer, you can forget it. The first thing they start talking about is it's just a condition that has no cure. It's in your genes, but we have drugs, and I encourage fibre. So that's the general message. Even to this day, when you go down to the doctors, if you've got Crohn's, either diverticulitis, IBS, all these gut problems, and that's the general advice that they give people. Consume more fibre and potentially take our toxins. So that's basically what I did. From 2014 to 2017, I was on medication that lowered bowel frequency movement, suppressed some symptoms. And so in the beginning, it did feel like it was helping. I had no clue at the time. It wasn't doing me any favours other than suppressing the symptoms and masking the truth. But yes, I went about taking their advice as well. I consumed a lot more whole grains, so brown rice instead of white rice, lots of veg, lots of fruit. There was also protein available, but it was always lean, so chicken, cod here and there, maybe a little bit of ground beef. But honestly, I was just consuming pretty much a plant-based diet. Failed me. 3 years later, after their advice and their medications, 2017 comes along, and now I'm flaring up for the worst time. It was just unbelievable compared to all my other flare-ups, which did progressively get worse. This was unlike anything I've ever known, and so it felt like I was poisoned. The last 2 days before I was hospitalised, I was going to the toilet 30 times a day, and so it was absolutely relentless, very exhausting. I was losing a lot of tissue. The medication was actually coming out of me intact, and I remember juicing cabbages. I'd heard some information about the glutamine element, and that can be really helpful in cabbages, and so I thought, well, I'll juice the cabbages and take my medication with that. This was doing me absolutely no use whatsoever. I was creased up on the couch going to and from the toilet, and I knew I didn't have a day in me, another day in me. I genuinely felt like I was in serious trouble. And so the next day I winded up in the hospital. I was very depleted and sort of low in electrolytes. They put me on intravenous drip and stuff like that, and stuck me on some steroids, I think, just to immediately get me out of trouble, lower that inflammation, put me in a position where they now can have a little bit of an explore and see what's going on, because they had no idea. I haven't seen them since my diagnosis, which was a sigmoid endoscopy, by the way. They took biopsies, and that's how they came back with ulcerative colitis. And so from the last time they saw me, it was very mild and low end. And I could even tell by the way they were talking and communicating between each other. I didn't take the anaesthetic, so I could see and read the room. They put a camera up there and went about taking biopsies, and they carried on and on and on. And they were like, wow, the whole colon is diseased. You've got very little chance of getting out of the hospital with all of your colon. And what they did actually is they trialled me on a 50-50 shot drug. I think it was a very potent trial drug, an immune suppressant. And so obviously a little bit dangerous at times, certainly when you're in the hospital. You go on an immune suppressant drug, your walls come down and you're at higher risk of other things. So I think they gave me maybe sort of 2-3 days where they were like, we're happy to put you on this for this amount of time, but we shouldn't go over. I think I was on it for a couple of days longer, and they actually came in and said, sorry, but nothing's worked. We're going to actually have to take your entire colon out in the morning. And so it was an emergency situation, an emergency surgery type of thing. I remember they had some stoma nurses. So if anybody doesn't know what a stoma is, it's basically the part of the digestive tract that protrudes through the abdominal wall. Wherever they've had to do their surgery, at that point, whatever is left, that's what protrudes, and that's what I have now. The stoma nurses came around and they drew a little circle on my stomach, and that's where it would be, kind of thing. They took me through the whole concept of wearing a bag, because obviously without a colon now, I have to empty number 2 into a bag. And so at the time, believe it or not, I was really quite ready. It was just like, please just do what you need to do, because I feel like I'm poisoned and I don't have many days in me. It was just crazy situation. Anyway, the next morning I get my gown and my socks and I go down. They put an epidural in my back, and the next moment I know I'm waking up, coming to, how's your pain level and all this stuff, and a very slow sort of recovery in the hospital. I had the nurses come back round to check how the stoma is, if it's healthy, if it's working properly. The interesting thing is that as soon as you can eat, they give you this menu and it's just a list of nonsense. There's almost no food on it. Even if there is food, there's not a lot of animal fats. There's all the stuff that basically put me in that position in the first place. That's what they're offering me to refeed again after so many days. Anyway, I get back to health, at least to the point where they're happy. I can walk, I can wash, I can change the bag independently. I now go home, and this is still sort of 2017, and my mum and dad, I was quite happy to be home at first. I went back to my mum and dad's house and my brother was there. Okay, that first night was a bit tricky getting into a flatbed because I was used to lowering myself down, so quite painful on my abdomen. And I woke up and everyone had gone to work, and my depression just hit me instantly that day. It didn't take very long. I would say 90 minutes into my day that it was so quiet. It was just me. I've had a look. I've had a change. I'm feeling different. I'm looking different, and I'm back where I used to be. But this obvious thing has now changed. And I'd always experienced a bit of anxiety. I was always quite neurotic, but I've not known real depression. And this was definitely depression. I didn't feel like I was able to move forward with the same attitude. It crushed my confidence. I was single at the time, which really doesn't help when you wind up physically like this. I thought, I can't accept it. Someone else probably won't want to. And so, I kind of slowly went back to work, and I poured myself into that. I was going crazy at work. It's a physical job as well. I clean windows. So at first it was really tricky to stretch and reach and all this stuff with the weakness down the middle of my stomach. But, slowly and surely I built up my strength. But the depression would come and go in waves. And I've actually met my partner who I'm with now, Lucy. We've got a house together now, and so things obviously worked out quite well. But I'd met her on the round. I used to clean her windows, and we got quite close, and we used to talk and things like that. And so that was nice. It was a very natural progression in the way it blossomed, and that helped for a while, But I always say this, the thing about depression is you're never safe if you're that way inclined and you're eating the wrong food. Certainly, your biome's all messed up and all this stuff that was going on. It came back with a vengeance. It was almost like I suppressed it with love, and it come back with a vengeance. And now, so we got this house, and I found myself coming home from work and freezing in the porchway where there was no way I could just be myself for a moment, and I just couldn't move. It was really quite scary because I was afraid if I did move, I was going somewhere really dark. I had some very, very deep, dark thoughts, and things just... I actually was really scared, honestly. I'd never really taken some of these thoughts seriously, and I felt like I was encroaching on acting upon them, and I thought, I need help. I can't deal with this on my own. I'm not strong enough, clearly. I'm falling to pieces. Reach out to my doctor once again, really not wanting to take medications, not really wanting to have therapy, because I think I overanalyze myself so much that no one can tell me any more about me than me. I know me very well. Being so pensive and introspective through my past, with being so neurotic, I overanalyze everything I've said and done, and actually that goes for everyone else as well. And it's just, again, that's quite relentless. But anyway, eventually they gave me a number, and I think it was called We're With You. I think that's the people that I dealt with, a unit that specialise in treating mental health conditions and things like that. They said, okay, cool, it's a 45-minute conversation. Most likely you'll need some sort of medication, but we think that we're going to admit you into some kind of therapy and perhaps refine how we're going to treat you, and this was the process. Anyway, I was anticipating a secondary call to arrange the next step. A week went by. Okay, no problem. Okay, I felt a little bit better because I got stuff off my chest and thought I was being helped. 2 weeks went by, starting to get a little bit worried. You can't call these numbers back. They're very strange numbers. And actually, a few weeks went by, and now I'm almost not with it. For some reason, I didn't get the ball rolling again, and I'm sort of thinking about alternatives and stuff like this. It was 2 months now. I'm sitting on the couch just to my side here, and I'm looking at the TV, YouTube's on, and Michaela Peterson's Don't Eat This came up. I watched that. It blew my mind. It compelled me really to at least take a full leap of faith, just jump in. What have you got to lose? The BBBE challenge came up through the algorithm after watching this particular video where Michaela Peterson was talking about ameliorating her autoimmune conditions and her depression, which was obviously the thing that inspired me. So, like I said, all these other videos start coming up. The BBBE challenge, that was very simple. So I thought, okay, tomorrow, because I'm not patient at all, I thought I'm desperate and I've made up my mind already. So this is what I'm doing tomorrow. I'm not eating any plants for 30 days. All I did was just set myself a 30-day challenge. Me and my partner, actually, even Lucy, though she wasn't suffering, she thought she'd support me and just give it a go as well. So we both jumped in cold turkey. I wouldn't advocate for this, but anyway, cold turkey, BBBE. And the very next day, and this wasn't something that was on my mind, my acid reflux just didn't come, and I got this daily. And that hasn't been, I haven't had a symptom of acid reflux since for 19 plus months now. I was struggling a little bit at first with energy because I was so used to consuming carbohydrates multiple times a day. And I think that, again, that now I realise that was part and parcel of my mental problems, my brain deficiency with energy, if you like. And so this was a little bit of a difficulty at first 2 weeks, struggling, probably getting maybe a little bit less sleep and getting very tired of night. And I think I wasn't consuming enough fats, Anyway, 3 weeks went by, my skin's much better. I'm now starting to feel like I've got a lot of energy. Pretty much on day 21, I go to work, it's a lovely day. I didn't eat breakfast. And I'm working through the morning and I'm thinking, I've just got so much energy. I can't believe how much energy I've got, considering I haven't eaten anything today. Didn't want to eat. I found myself smiling. I felt happy and I felt good. And it's really strange because it's kind of like I morphed. It was almost like overnight, I morphed into this new body, this new, the way I feel, my outlook, my lens, everything changed. And I couldn't help it. After it got to about midday, I pulled over in my van and I just recorded on my phone, just sitting in my van, my testimony. I'm not depressed. I feel great, like the energy's unbelievable. And everything about it. I wasn't burning in the sun. I always used to go pink in the sun, and I'm just working out there all day. It's really hot, no sweat. I was like cool as a cucumber, like Roger Federer. just felt great. And so, I couldn't help but document this and put it on Facebook at first. And anyway, it's been 19 months now, and I have not consumed any carbohydrates, nothing. I set myself a 30-day challenge, and I've just not looked back because the way I feel and the way it works, and it's just doing me so well, it serves me so well, I just can't justify eating a single piece of plant matter again. I've set up my YouTube channel, and now I live and advocate for this way of life, this beautiful way of eating, the carnivore diet. That's it.
Unbelievable. And what a beautiful story, and well told. And just for people that don't know what BBBE is, do you want to explain?
Yes, that's beef, butter, bacon and eggs.
Yeah, simple as that.
Easy concept. Yeah, it almost seemed complete in itself. You got your cooking fats, you got a little bit of variety there. You can make breakfast that's different from your dinner, and you can keep, alternative ways of cooking and things just to keep things interesting. So that's what I did for the first 30 days. And actually now it's really changed quite a lot. I don't eat a lot of too much butter. I don't have too much butter. I certainly don't really eat a lot of bacon anymore. And quite a lot of eggs here and there, but sometimes no eggs at all, where I was eating eggs a lot, in the beginning.
Well, that's the good thing about carnivore is you do evolve, and you can start from a very basic sort of, like you say, BBBE. I just want to ask you a couple of questions just to clarify. So this started in 2012, I believe you said.
Sorry, yes, my colitis, yeah.
Yeah. So what caused it in the first place? I know you said it's an autoimmune condition, but what do you think actually was the root cause of it?
So for me, it would have to be from what I've learned, what my experience, because I've done experiments unwillingly, if you like, post-surgery as well, because I've had in my bag, I can see, what the way foods do and don't digest depending on what food I consume. So to them, in the medical profession, they tell you that it's somewhat idiopathic. They can't really tell you why it's caused, that there's no cure and all this kind of stuff. And so they never really addressed food. Can you believe one doctor even said maybe try drinking a beer a night? That's what his actual advice was. Maybe try drinking a beer of a night because that will help a regular bowel movement. I couldn't believe it. I thought that was great advice. I went home and started drinking a beer of a night, But in my opinion, no doubt, it's a combination of things that come from plants. The one biggest enemy for me was fibre, indigestible fibre, mostly cellulose and lignin. That was most likely the thing that exacerbated my problem the most. But I've also learned that certain plant proteins I was consuming in abundance, things like gluten and wheat, would have also caused gut problems. And I think that we know about lectins now as well. Permeability issues with lectin seed oils wouldn't have been good. And of course, alcohol is never good for anything. So, but I do believe fibre. So I always say to people, if you've got IBD, you want to wean off the carbohydrates, starting with the most fibrous. And though I don't advocate for things like refined grains, believe it or not, white rice, white bread, white pasta, that stuff is the stuff you want to be consuming if you absolutely had to consume carbohydrates with IBD. And even diverticulitis, even if you've had an accident and they perform surgery and you've got some funny scar tissue that's healed back in a way that it's difficult for some food to go through, you want to be consuming some substrate that's broken down entirely in the stomach acid. So by the time it hits any part of your digestive tract from that point onwards, it's non-inflammatory, it's nutrient dense, it's liberated and broken down, rather than being in sort of tact like a lot of these whole food plant products are. And that's what I've learned, because to get into this maybe a little bit late, you might want to ask me some questions, but as I wear a bag now, I went back to eating all these different diets before carnivore. And so I can tell you that if I eat a mushroom and just cut it in half and swallow that mushroom, it does not change at all. If I was to cut a little pyramid shape out of a piece of mango or pineapple and swallow that comes out into my bag in that exact size, shape and form. But if I swallow a chunk of meat, it comes out liquefied. And so that was amazing to me. I can't believe I'd never really considered this aspect of food and substrate and how that what would be inflammatory and why, but this is what I've come to understand. And it's given me a unique perspective, if you like, within the carnivore space. I think a lot of people appreciate my perspective. I've been through a fair bit of crap in the past, but now I can actually see and report on things with my own eyes. It's not a study. It's not based on some kind of just anecdote. It's not just an anecdote. I have a human stomach which has between 1.1 and 2 acid, very, very acidic, very low. And all humans have within that range of stomach acidity. And so I know that when I partially chew meat, it's liquidized. But if I even thoroughly chew things like onions, cabbage, pineapple, nuts and seeds, you're still going to see remnants. You're still going to see and be able to identify those plants partially intact where you've not done the job properly, where we can't break that stuff down. We don't have the microorganisms. We just don't have the equipment to do so.
Yeah, and then this is something I've mentioned on my channel, that meat does not end up in the bag as a lump of meat. And if you haven't got the bag, then it's not going to be rotting in someone's colon. But those other things you mentioned possibly are going to be. Without being too basic, I mean, at what age did this start? Because I can't work out how old you are.
I was 24 when I was diagnosed, and I was 28 or something like that. And I lost my colon. Yeah. So, it's quite difficult as I move on to think how all the years, like how I've been carnivore, when I got diagnosed, how old I was. Yeah. Hopefully I've been consistent with this.
But it's very young, isn't it, to have such an invasive piece of surgery and to lose a critical part of your stomach, or your digestive system, I should say. Quite surprising. So when you went carnivore, I know you said your partner went all in, but what about friends and family, or did they all think you were mad?
I think based on the knowledge that I was acquiring from watching certain videos and that, I think that they believed in it enough. They weren't worried. And actually the more and more that I became passionate, I think that if you're suffering and you're fed up and then all of a sudden you've got all this relief, and now my brain is actually working properly and I can learn a bit more and absorb a bit more and retain and express myself slightly better than I used to be able to. Because I'm a window cleaner, I didn't even finish my education properly. I just didn't really care. But now I just wonder whether my brain, I just wasn't eating the right stuff all this time. But I think they believed in it all more and more, the way my journey panned out for me and the information I came across, and that I understood some of the science that underpinned this stuff, and so I think, and actually my mum is now carnivore. So my mum's not worried at all. She's carnivore. I'm not worried about her eating mostly red meat and eggs and cooking in butter. My dad's changed his diet. It's very meat-centric. My brother's full carnivore now. My partner's a loose ketogenic because she really doesn't suffer much. Her child lives with us. We're a trio here, and she does the same. She's quite interested. She's, again, loose ketogenic. It's very difficult when she's going to school, and we try, but we don't force things on her in any serious way. She's got the knowledge and she is interested, but I know it's crazy to say she's only young, and it's probably the best time to give her all the chance in the world with the right diet. And we do try, but we just don't force things. If she wants to go to a party, she can go to a party. if she wants to stay behind and eat some cake at school, and that's fine. You know, when she's here, she eats pretty sensibly. But everyone around me, they can see the difference in me. And so there's obviously some validity in the anecdote, but also just what I'm saying and from what I've learned and all this sort of stuff. So just mostly positive things, really.
Yeah, and I think on the education side of things, I'm the same. I was from a difficult home. I lost my parents when I was very young, and I didn't leave with any qualifications, and I've got all my education later in life. And I would have to say to you, you sound much more educated than the doctor who spent 7 years training to be a doctor, who said, go and have a beer before you go to bed, which is about the worst thing you could possibly say. And all the fibre is it's absolutely ridiculous. So, I mean, you're coming across as mega intelligent and thoughtful, and, the way you talk, I would trust you more than most doctors, I've got to be honest, because you know your stuff and you've researched it. The problem is you're not indoctrinated, so you're open-minded and you use common sense and real-world experience and objective reality, whereas a lot of people that are literally indoctrinated don't. They will look at someone in front of them, and even if you don't tick the boxes, they would just still do the same things that they're told to do. Fibre, high carbohydrates, Even if you went back now and to all the doctors that you saw in the past and said, well, this is what I've found. Mushrooms don't change. Pineapple doesn't change. Meat seems to liquefy. I've got a lot better. They will just dismiss you. They're not interested. And I never used to feel like that. And I never used to be that public. But it does upset me ever such a lot because I get this, I've had I've been very lucky. It's not been big-headed. I've had over 1,000 clients now since I've been a carnivore coach. And the stories I hear of what doctors say when people go back and they resolve so many things, it's really upsetting. It is really upsetting. So you're doing the right thing there, definitely. Do you feel any resentment about that period of time where you got to a dark place and in the porch and you said that you had dark thoughts? Do you feel any resentment looking back?
It's hard not to feel at least a little bit bitter about things. I mean, I've let go a lot of that now. At first it was just incredible. I do liken it, I think like many of us do, to Neo being unplugged from the Matrix. He goes back in and you can't unsee, you're looking at all these nerd people, hopeless. And they actually, like that quote says, they're hopelessly like fighting for the system to keep it in place because it's kind of almost easier and serving them. And they're not willing, they're not ready to be unplugged. But he knows the truth. He's been unplugged. He's going back in and he's looking at this world. And that's what I see now. Everywhere I go, every shop, all the media, all the adverts, the food outlets, everything, even products like, toothpaste and hairspray and all I can't help but see it. We are living in the Matrix. It's a system of control. And like if you're a nerd enough and you're not open-minded, you're not ready, it's almost like you have to be fed up and sit to find the truth. And that's terrible, that the system is that way. But yeah, I've seen doctors since and they're clueless. They can't define what certain molecules are. They don't know what cholesterol is, but they want to lower it. They don't know how food is digested and how food isn't digested. They think red meat's a problem because it causes all of these problems. You think, you've only got to think about anthropological data and the history, just history, real genuine history, not propaganda. When you learn about this stuff, it's really very, very simple. It's all about minimalist, natural, back to the roots, where we come from. Humans, we are an animal species that is designed to eat meat, and we would have only had access to certain plants for certain parts of the year. I think if we all ate that way naturally, where we were locally, we'd probably be in not perfect health, perhaps, some of our genetics were unfortunate, epigenetics probably more so. But I think for the vast majority of people in the modern world, the problems, if you just ate the right diet and you were outside and you were grounding, you were getting sunlight, don't put sun cream on, get to bed when the sun goes down and all this stuff, it would just be like devices and EMFs and things and other things that might cause certain problems. But yeah, it's madness.
Yeah, and you said that about you stopped burning in the sun. I mean, that was my experience. I used to wear sunglasses all the time, right up until I went low carb. So up until my 50th year. And it's incredible that I don't need the sunglasses at all. So the sun sensitivity is gone. And I don't put sun cream on. I haven't done that for as long as I can remember. To be honest, I don't burn in the sun. I enjoy the sun. But when you think about it, talking about the history of human beings, we've been in the sun. I can't believe that in the last 3 or 4 years, and I'm not going to get too political, that being with friends, touching people, hugging them, being in the sun, getting outside, getting fresh air, it was frowned upon. I just can't believe it. And trying to block out the sun, which is Bill Gates's latest plan, and burying trees, because apparently that will help. Anyway, right, we don't want to get into that, do we? And we also don't want to get into the fact that they knocked down 9 million trees in Scotland to build a wind farm. So we're not going to get political, but for those that are listening on the audio, both of us are shaking our heads because we can't believe it. So anyway, right. But you're a new person, more energy, and the depression has gone as well. And do you attribute that to the dietary changes, or do you think there's some other reason?
No, I for sure attribute it to animal fats being the predominant energy source coming from food, and sugar not getting in the way of that. So previously I was consuming typically grain-based meals, and so breakfast, lunch and dinner, and I would often snack. And even if I didn't snack, my body thought I was, because there would be some sort of fruity, sugary drink in between time. And so it was constant sugar. And that's getting in the way of ketones. So obviously I don't think I really ever knew much ketosis other than when I was a baby. I can't remember. So but in my adult life, never in ketosis. No animal fats, cholesterol, very little vitamin A, D, E, K2, D3, all the correct forms of these nutrients, and just sugar all the time. And obviously so many toxic components. I think that my body was preoccupied and, just blocked my brain. If you think about all the heme iron I'm getting now, the B12, DHA, EPA, all this stuff, along with the cholesterol, along with all the good stuff coming from animal products, it's just allowed my body to function the way it was always supposed to. So I also feel that if I adopted this diet from day one, I probably never would have even flared. I wouldn't have had ulcerative colitis, because you pull the trigger on all of these things with diet.
What's it like living with a stoma?
It sucks, to be honest with you. It was, even now it's not great, but obviously before I had a real issue with that. Like I don't know what I can say. I'm not going to swear or anything, but people won't even believe me. I used to punch and hit, and it's almost like it was another person. I hated it so much. I beat myself up, I was terrible. And now it's like I don't have that love-hate relationship with food. I genuinely love food in a really healthy way. I'm addressing hunger and not cravings all the time. And so it's a totally different relationship I have. And actually, even with my bag, because all the plant fibers, it would create this horrible consistency. I was aware the moment my bag would start to work. And so I would eat and eat all this nonsense of just addressing my addictions, really. And then a few hours later, I'm like, all right, here we go, because I can feel it. My abs are flexing and contracting and they're struggling. And quite often I couldn't help but prod around my abdomen to aid some of this stuff, because it was just so inflammatory that it just didn't break down. And so now I don't get any signals of when it's working, if that makes sense. And so all I do is just put my hand on my stomach, are we good? Do I need to find a toilet? No, I'm all right. And it's very sort of soothing, very therapeutic. And so I've calmed down. I don't react. I act more than react. And I'm at peace now with things. And so, sure, if I could click my fingers and it not be there, of course, I'd absolutely do that. But I also understand now that it's my lifeline up. I would have been dead without it. It was an emergency surgery. It's kind of saved my life. And at least I now have a second shot at life. I'm not depressed anymore. I'm not suffering. I'm liberated. I'm free. And so I'm quite grateful for that. And I know that this is the healthiest, the best version of me I can be, given my circumstances, and that's okay. I'll take it.
Yeah, and I think you don't know me very well. I wear hearing aids. I lip read. I went deaf in my 20s, and if I could click my fingers, although I wouldn't hear it very well, and my hearing could get better, I'd definitely do that in one respect. But also, what doesn't kill you does make you stronger. And I think one of the reasons people like the interviews is it makes me really listen. People want to know my setup. Zoom is fantastic because it puts captions up for me, so I can follow this in real time. So the technology has been amazing. And one thing I'd tell you, Lee, which maybe you'd be interested in, is my hearing when I went carnivore for the first time in over 30 odd years, started to improve slightly. Not to the point where I don't need my hearing aids, it's not like magic, but the responses were better. I could hear slightly more. So I think even something like that, which you're told, I mean, you were told at the beginning, it's not going to get any better. Things do get better. I mean, if you eat the right way, your body's systems will all love you for it. And yeah, you're not going to be perfect necessarily, and you're not going to have that magic wand effect, in every case. But it will make your symptoms less, or it'll make your inflammation less, or your lack of sleep go away. Your anxiety be less. So I think it's an amazing way of eating, and I can tell you're very passionate. So how do you get the message out?
So I don't really have a lot of social media, actually. That was a lot to do with my journey with depression. I kind of quit the drink, then I went carnivore, then I decided to get rid of the social media, because at first I shared my story on Facebook. It's how I kept in touch with my mum a lot of the time. And I got some quite good positive feedback. But after a while, I got the impression that people they didn't care anymore. Okay, we get it. You feel good now and you're promoting it, but people weren't really sort of open, because I guess unless you're really fed up and sick, like a lot of us, you don't find the truth. And so they had no clue. They don't know what they're doing, how poisonous and how bad it is. So after a while, I thought, you know what, forget all this. So I just kind of deleted it all and set up my YouTube. And so the way I get it out is to just live and advocate for this way of life and lead by example in front of people that can see me. Certainly little ones. My kids got, my sister's got a few kids, and I'm always encouraging how good it is when they finish their meat, and I'm not saying, finish your vegetables. I'm, focus on your eggs and your meat you've got there and fill up on that. And obviously on my YouTube, I try and make the content, push that out and make little videos that save people time, and hopefully, I get people to click on the videos with the title and the thumbnail, and maybe I can inspire some people. And I do find that when I do make certain videos, a lot of people, they share. You can see how many shares you get, and that's incredible to me. I think, that's great, because it justifies me going through what I went through in many ways. If I can help so many people, I get a lot of lovely messages, emails, and people reaching out to me, I've come off my meds, or you're the reason I went carnivore and I haven't had an episode. And it's amazing, to think a few years ago, I was just a miserable window cleaner with no prospects, nothing going on, nothing meaningful. I had some hobbies, I'm quite artistic. I play the piano and I paint, and that's why I quite like the editing process in my videos. But now I've got a genuine purpose. I feel like I'm a force for good in the world, even though I'm just a window cleaner still. It's more meaningful. When I wake up in the morning, my life has more meaning.
Yeah, and I'm smiling because I think we're quite similar, because I play the piano quite badly, but I've put some of my music on YouTube, but don't check out that because it's not that great yet. But I wanted it as a public record in case I do improve, which I think I have been. So just for those people that don't know Lee's channel, I'll put the links in the description. One thing I will also say is try to subscribe, because it makes a big difference about getting the message out there. So if you're listening to this and thinking, I'm going to give this way of eating a try, or wow, I gave this way of eating a try and it's worked for me, I need to spread the word. One of the easiest ways to subscribe to the channel is because it just gets more traction, and then YouTube will put the videos out. So I find it quite odd that 81% of the people that watch my videos don't subscribe, but they come back. So yeah, just subscribe. It doesn't cost anything. It's quite strange.
It's free. It's completely free. Maybe some of the older folk thinks, it's quite new to them. Perhaps they think if they hit that subscribe button, they'll be billed. It's totally free.
Yes. I think that's one of the problems, because subscriptions normally are chargeable. Anyway, Lee, that is amazing. I really appreciate your time. Is there anything you want to get off your chest before we go?
Oh, well, I may as well, just while I'm here. It's actually a little bit grim. It's okay, because it's been on the cards now for a long time. You may know, actually. But I have got an impending surgery. So where I've had an ileostomy surgery, they usually leave a little whatever they do at the back, however long it is. It's often 5, 6, 7 to 10, maybe even 15 centimetres long, connects to the back end. That obviously can't just stay like that, because the chances are over time there could be mutation of cells and cancer production. So I am waiting on a surgery that's been on the cards for 7 years. I got the ball rolling a year and a half ago, but with all the strikes and the NHS being all rammed, it's just been a nightmare. Just had a cancellation, actually, and so it's now scheduled for the 24th of April. So if people wonder where I go for 1 to 2 weeks or whatever, that's what I'm doing. I'll be busy kind of just tending to to a pretty big surgery, because unfortunately they have to go through the front again because it's so small, this tissue. They want to put stents in to raise my kidney and bladder out of the way so they can concentrate on this vulnerable area that's got all this tissue, the nerves pertain to the kidney and bladder function, which can be a bit tricky. So it's a long recovery, but again, on the carnivore diet, I'm hoping to beat that. And Lucy, she's going to bring in some things, I'm thinking raw egg yolks and bone broth and a bit of liver and some lamb and stuff like that. As soon as I can eat, they'll probably think I'm crazy, but obviously I think the other way around is crazy. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Pretty grim, but at the same time, I've got a pretty good attitude and I'm not too worried if it's out of my hands. And so whatever will be, will be.
Well, I'm sure it'll be fine. And like you say, avoid the hospital food, and I think your recovery will be quicker. So, Lee, thank you very much for your time. I've really appreciated it. And you've been a thoroughly interesting, fascinating person. So thanks for that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for listening to my podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Your support means the absolute world to me. And if you're enjoying this show, I've got a small favour to ask you. I'd be incredibly grateful if you would consider becoming a supporter and make a small monthly donation. Your contribution will really help to improve the show. I'll be able to improve the software, maybe put a few more episodes out, and do many things that I'm hoping to do in the future. Do them a lot quicker. So, it's a small monthly contribution. You can cancel at any time, and the link is in the show notes. Thanks very much for listening.